The heartless and ruthless cultivator Qian Qingqing once crossed over and with the help of the system, successfully captured Qian Renxue. Qianren Xue fell into sorrow, with his grandfather sacrificing and his mother dying. In the end, he stayed in the Soul Douluo for his whole life. After watching all the plot, Qian Qingqing said, "It seems like she deserves it a bit." The saying goes, without a man in the heart, pulling out a sword is natural. Qian Qingqing, who possesses the attribute of being a fan of countless people and has no intention of being ruthless, has decided to change this unjust fate. Qianren Xue hides in the heavenly Dou Empire. Qian Qingqing refused. She founded a temple to collect talents and established herself on the mainland. Qian Renxue delays her cultivation. Her foundation is unstable, so that even after offering sacrifices to become a god, she cannot compete with the son of Qi Yun. Qian Qingqing said that cultivation is the king's way, and everything else is illusory. Only by utilizing resources and strengthening oneself can this life be perfect. But when everything was coming to an end, a mysterious pill ruined her years of hard work. P.S. As it was written in the early days, the writing style was immature, the plot was outrageous, and the OOC was very serious. Qian Qingqing was not Luoli, and in the early stage, she was set to look like the 20-year-old Qian Renxue. Keywords of the novel. Douluo Zhi. She is a group pet in the Martial Soul Hall and has no pop-ups. Douluo Zhi. She is a group pet in the Martial Soul Hall and has no fans. Download the complete text. Douluo Zhi. She is a group pet in the Martial Soul Hall and has no fans. Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. 001, Capturing Tang San and Collaborating with the 7 Treasures of the Glass Sect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1001. Capturing Tang San and Collaborating with the 7 Treasures of the Glass Sect. Knock on the blackboard, focus. 1. Qian Qingqing's actual age is over 1,000 years old, and she is not the same as Qian Renxue, and she is not Luoli. 2. There are many private settings, but I won't give specific examples. If you see any settings you haven't seen before, it's private settings. 3. OOC warning, decline KY, do not engage in personal attacks. 40,000 fans, no need for strategy, no fixed CP. 5. The 3 views on the characters in the text do not represent the author's 3 views. It is okay to criticize the characters, but do not elevate the author. Everyone's age has changed, and the specific explanation in the text is the main one. 7. Lightning protection. Leaning towards love and Mary Sue, early unfinished writing with immature writing style and plot, it is recommended not to fall into the trap. In the cold and spacious hall, a girl with long golden hair is sitting upright in the center of the hall practicing. She has an extraordinary temperament, a beautiful face, and snowy skin. She is wearing a 5-petal patterned skirt with wavy gold threads embedded in the hem, one by one, which is particularly eye-catching. At the same time, a majestic aura emanated from her side, making people unable to resist the urge to submit to her as soon as they approached. After a moment, a powerful aura suddenly emanated from her body, causing the angel statues enshrined in the hall to shake slightly. Breakthrough. As the voice sounded, Qian Qingqing slowly opened her eyes, feeling that her whole body was full of strength. Her precious blue pupils emitted a golden mist, and she slightly opened her small and pink lips, saying softly, "Finally, we have broken through." As the words fell, a mechanical sound came to her ear. Ding! Congratulations to the host for reaching level 51 Soul King. Reward the god with a soul ring. Ding! New task released. Stop the 100,000-year-old blue-silver emperor from sacrificing, seize the opportunity to kidnap Tang San, and reward a red lotus firebone fan. Ding! Hidden mission triggered. Collaborate with the 7 Treasures Glass Sect to reward the Red Lotus Industry Fire. Capturing Tang San. Collaborating with the 7 Treasures Glass Sect. Qian Qingqing stood up and silently recited the task released by the system. She is a traveler. 7 years ago, she crossed the Douluo continent by chance. With the help of the system, she successfully captured the young master of the martial soul hall, Qian Renxue, who was undergoing the awakening ceremony. After giving up, she found that her body was also changing as she grew up. So far, she can be certain that although she is wearing Qian Renxue's face, her body is her own. Why did this happen? Qian Qing is not very clear either. Maybe it's related to the system. After losing Qianren Xue, the system forcibly bound her and told her the final fate of Qianren Xue. Qian Renxue is a highly talented soul master. At the age of 6, he awakened the 6-winged angel martial soul, with a congenital full soul power of 20 levels. His father is the current pope, his mother is the next pope, and he himself is the next angel god appointed by the angel god. From any perspective, her life should always be brilliant and glorious. Unfortunately, halfway through, Tang San, the son of Qi Luck, emerged. Tang San is also a time traveler, equipped with various buffs. Not only does he unleash his cheats fiercely, but he is also very versatile. Of course, this is only based on the different positions of each person, so the perspective on the issue is also different. Qian Qingqing has no favorable impression of Tang San. For her, prioritizing becoming a god is the way. If Tang San wants to confront her in the future, she doesn't mind killing Tang San first. When will Qianxuan Ji hunt down the 100,000-year-old blue-silver emperor? After Qian Qingqing broke through, she slowly walked out of the Elder Hall and walked towards the training ground not far from the Martial Soul Hall. As she walked, she put on a half-face mask and said, "Also, let the 7 Treasures Glass Sect cooperate with the temple, can we consider completing the task?" Calculated. Host. Just now, the system checked the time and found that in about a month, Qianxuan Ji will lead a group of people from the Martial Soul Hall to hunt down the 100,000-year blue-silver emperor. That is to say, 1 month later, if I fail to prevent the 100,000-year blue-silver emperor from sacrificing, Qianxuan illness will be seriously injured and return to the Martial Soul Hall before being devoured by Bibidong. Yes, host. If the host doesn't need this fan, they can skip completing this task. As far as I know, fans and Red Lotus Industry Fire are a set of equipment, right? Yes, host. The fan can drive the fire of the Red Lotus Industry and can be used as a banana fan. Listening to the playful and smiling voice of the system, Qian Qingqing fell into contemplation. To be honest, she doesn't want to stop it, but the reward given by the system is really tempting. She didn't want to give up the bone fan that could be used as a banana fan. After all, with just the Red Lotus Industry Fire, if she couldn't drive it, it wouldn't be of much use. Tisk, dear mother, I can only apologize to you. The thought of completing this task was equivalent to leaving behind the life of Qian Xuani, and Qian Qingqing felt an unbearable headache. Sure enough, there is no compromise in the world. You cannot have both fish and bear's paws. Ha! Hey! As soon as he arrived at the training ground and stopped, the sound of soldiers training came to Qian Qingqing's ear. Sister, you're here. A boy dressed in silver clothing saw Qian Qingqing walking towards him from a long distance. He ran forward and stopped in front of Qian Qingqing, with a pair of apricot eyes fixed on her. The boy has a head of silver-gray hair, with a central bangs in front of his hair that have a red hue. At the same time, there is a tattoo-like symbol that is neither long nor short under the corners of his left and right eyes. Well, how are you? Are you still doing well here? Qian Qingqing smiled slightly at Xiaoyu and led him to stand under the tree. Well, that's great. After practicing here for a while, my soul power has far surpassed that of the people who awaken the martial soul with me. No one can match me. Well, that's great. Qian Qingqing smiled faintly, and the sunlight fell on her body. At the young age of 8, Xiaoyu looked up at her. Under the sunlight, her mask shone brightly, somewhat dazzling. However, Xiaoyu didn't feel this light glaring. Every day, he thought to himself, what kind of face was hidden beneath this mask? Just 2 years ago, Qian Qingqing broke through the Soul Sect at an astonishing speed and became the youngest Soul Master on the mainland to reach the Soul Sect. For this, Qian Douluo was overjoyed and exclaimed that Qian Qingqing was an unparalleled genius in the world. And Qian Qingqing took this opportunity to propose an idea. There are many Soul Masters on the mainland who have never been able to cultivate in their lifetime. She wants to take them in and help them. Qian Douluo originally did not agree with this, but Qian Qingqing made a special oath before Qian Douluo agreed to her idea. The so-called idea is actually to establish a new organization. As the young master of the martial soul hall, she cannot use this identity to do some things. Therefore, she can only establish her own family, form an organization, and then use her new identity to do things that her current identity cannot do. The first step in forming an organization is to recruit talents, so Qian Qingqing turned his attention to some rare talents. Xiaoyu, Hulaina, and Yan are the golden generation of the future of the martial soul hall. They are exceptionally talented and loyal to the martial soul hall. Qian Qingqing believes that these three are the most suitable. The temple she founded will belong to the martial soul temple in the future, so there is no concept of prying people into it. Moreover, her goal is to lead the martial soul temple towards the top of the sky. To stand invincible forever, one can only recruit endless talents, and the martial soul hall is not a place that everyone can go to. That's why Qian Qingqing founded a temple to recruit those who are not qualified to enter the martial soul hall. Due to a name collision with the female lead, the book has been modified. It was previously published elsewhere and has been deleted. Please do not cut it. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. 002, Maybe I can meet Lord Ning there. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2002. Maybe I can meet Lord Ning there. Xiaoyu is also very curious about Qian Qingqing. He only knew that the elder sister in front of him had an unusual relationship with the grand worship of the elder hall, and the cultivation method she provided was also unique in the mainland. After he and his sister Hulina awakened their martial souls, they continued to practice using the methods taught to them by Qian Qingqing. I thought it wouldn't have a big impact, but I didn't expect their cultivation speed to increase rapidly. It can be said that they practice for a day, which is equivalent to others practicing for a month. Xiaoyu is very curious about this cultivation method. But whenever Qian Qingqing appeared in front of him, he didn't know how to ask for his words. After all, this can also be considered this sister's unique secret, right? Looking at this enchanting face, Xiaoyu suddenly felt a bit dazed. I still remember a year ago, he and his sister were bullied by some people due to the death of their parents. At that time, it was Qian Qingqing who came forward to help them and took them to the front of the great worship. Under the command of the great worship, he and Hulaina received extremely good treatment, so after awakening their martial souls, they naturally came to Qian Qingqing. The past drifted away with the wind, and the evil moon came to life amidst the sound of soldiers training. He still looked at Qian Qingqing, thinking that he needed to quickly cultivate and catch up with his sister's pace. Only in this way can he be qualified to stand by her side and become a knight on her own. Where is Hulina? Qian Qingqing looked at Xiaoyu in a scorching gaze. As a mentally mature adult, she knew what Xiaoyu's gaze represented. But she has thick skin and doesn't dislike others liking her. Besides, children's emotions are the most serious. A 6-year-old child can understand what liking means. Under the gaze of Qian Qingqing, Xiaoyu blushed and turned her head away. She deliberately looked to the other side with a different expression and said, "Ah, Nana is on the training ground. Okay, I'll go find her first. You can play by yourself for a while." Abandoning this sentence, Qian Qingqing lifted his foot and left. Ah! Xiaoyu wanted to say something more, but Ren had already walked away. Watching Qian Qingqing leave, his heart suddenly felt very uncomfortable. Passing through the spacious training ground, Qian Qingqing found Hulayina in a special venue. This training ground is several hundred acres wide, and it was secretly bought by Qian Qingqing to Qian Douluo. Qian Douluo knew her plan and agreed with her ideas. In his eyes, as long as it could push the martial soul hall forward, he would not say much, whether it was radical methods or anything. Compared to Bibi Dong and Qianxu Ji, Qian Qingqing also prefers Qian Douluo. Not to mention anything else, Qian Douluo is really good to Qianqing, and this kindness is also unique to Qianqing. Little Fox. Under the scorching sun, there is a little girl with yellow hair training hard in a special venue. The so-called training is actually far superior in strength and speed to soul masters at the same stage. Qian Qingqing used system rewards to create puppet figures that can accompany soul masters in training. When the puppet figures inject soul master soul power, they can adjust the difficulty according to the amount of soul power injected. Due to the insufficient soul power of Qian Qingqing at present, she shamelessly borrowed some soul power from Qian Douluo. The soul power of Qian Douluo is unparalleled in the world, so it is perfect for activating puppet figures. Hulayina had already been training in a special venue, sweating profusely. When she heard a familiar voice calling her, she immediately stopped her training and ran to Qianqing, saying, "Sister." Plush. Hulayina threw herself into Qian Qingqing's arms, smelling the faint fragrance of flowers on Qian Qingqing's body. She immediately felt that her fatigue had been dispelled. "Sister, how did you come?" Hulayina lifted her head in reluctance, blinking her big eyes and looking at Qian Qingqing expectantly. Qian Qingqing indulged in a smile and gently rubbed her head, saying, "Of course, I'm here to see if my little fox has made progress." "That's a coincidence, sister. I've been training very hard these past few days, even my brother has to be my defeated subordinate." Hulayina looked up proudly and boasted to Qianqing about her hard work and sparring in the past few days. At the same time, she didn't forget to ask Qianqing for a reward. She really liked this sister, and from the first time she saw her, she really liked her. "Well, then my little fox is really amazing." Qianqing still praised Hulayina as usual. After thinking for a moment, she seemed to remember something and said, "You probably don't have your first soul skill yet, right? Why don't I take you and Evil Moon to hunt soul beasts in the Soul Beast Forest tomorrow?" "All right." Hulayina's eyes lit up and she quickly nodded, looking as if she was very happy. Qian Qingqing watched her smile and laughed along with her. Since awakening martial soul came here, Hulayina has never gone out. Now that she can go out with her sister, she can't be happier. Qian Qingqing really likes little foxes, so she went to the system to learn about the original ending of little foxes. In fact, in this world, there is no right or wrong person, only opposing positions. The little fox can also be considered a genius of the generation, but unfortunately, love has misled people. Since ancient times, beautiful women have been sad when men are shut down, and in the end, they can be considered to have received nothing. After bidding farewell to Hulayina and Xiaoyu, Qian Qingqing went back to prepare to take them to hunt soul beasts tomorrow. The next day, the temple. Hulayina and Xiaoyu have been waiting for Qian Qingqing's arrival at the training ground since they got up early. In order not to reveal any clues, Qian Qingqing also waited until he left the martial soul hall before starting to paint flowers on his face. Since her painting skills matured, she has found that the flowers on her face are becoming more and more beautiful as she draws. On the way, she didn't forget to look in the mirror for a while. Due to the lack of confidence to trust at the moment, Qian Qingqing did not bring anyone with her. She planned to take her 2 children with her to hunt down soul beasts. After all, she is at least a level 51 soul king, so she shouldn't be unable to defeat even a 1,000-year-old soul beast, right? Hulayina, Evil Moon, and she are different. They do not have a system, so the configuration of soul rings cannot exceed the rules of this world. Otherwise, they will be designated to explode rings and die. The general soul ring configuration is yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 black. The yellow soul rings have not been around for over 1,000 years, and Hulina and Evil Moon now only need the first 2 soul rings. According to the best configuration, killing 2 suitable soul beasts that are hundreds of years old is enough. In order to test the special training results of Hulina and Xiaoyu, Qian Qingqing deliberately accelerated her speed and used her lightness skills to walk in the forest. Hulina and Xiaoyu also put in a lot of effort to keep up with Qian Qingqing's footsteps. At first, they could keep up, but over time, they clearly fell behind a lot. It wasn't until Qian Qingqing arrived at the location of the soul beast that they arrived late. Hulina was already gasping for breath. When she arrived at the location, she immediately supported the tree trunk and gasped heavily, "Mask. Sister. Ha, ha, you really, so fast." On the other hand, Xiaoyu is slightly better than Hulina, at least not holding onto the tree trunk to catch her breath. However, her handsome little face has already turned red, and those who don't know think he has taken some inappropriate medicine. Well, it's pretty good, at least we can get here in 3 minutes. Qian Qingqing is very satisfied with the training results of the 2. Her requirements are not high, but she hopes that these 2 siblings can become unparalleled people in the world. The martial souls of Xiaoyu and Hulina are also considered top-notch on the mainland. As long as they practice well, it is not difficult to become a renowned Douluo in the future. However, it still depends on how others cultivate them. After all, not everyone has cheats like Tang-san. You can use cheats to make yourself stronger. Cough, of course, this also includes herself. Seeing Qian Qing nodded in satisfaction, both Xiaoyu and Hulina were also very happy. They looked at each other with innocent smiles. "There's a colorful cat here, perfect for you, little evil moon." Qian Qingqing looked at Xiaoyu, and just as she was speaking, the colorful cat was already on the brink of death. Just now, the dart in Qian Qingqing's hand flew out in a flash and happened to pierce the colorful cat's lifeline. Xiaoyu widened her eyes in surprise. He hadn't even seen clearly how Qian Qingqing was using his moves, and the colorful cat died. "Wow, sister is so amazing." Hulina's reaction was different from that of Evil Moon. She clapped her hands, bouncing around like a cute little fox. "Go and kill it." 100-year soul beast, 1,000 Qian Qing pressed down on this and did not care about it. She just injected her soul power into the dart, and with her domineering soul power, if she were to hit harder, the colorful cat would have gone back to the west. In the 2nd year of coming to this world, Qian Qingqing found that her soul power was similar to the divine power she had used in the cultivation world. So she tried to inject soul power into something and see what reaction would occur. As expected, her guess was correct. Before the crossing, she was a god. Coincidentally, her representative divine position was an angel, exactly the same as that of Qian Qingqing to be crowned in the future. Perhaps it was a blessing from heaven that Qian Qing saw the scenery of this world when she was in a state of despair. Therefore, she came to Qian Qing's body and became Qian Qing. After watching Xiaoyu absorb the colorful cat's soul ring, Qian Qingqing took her 2 children to search for other soul beasts. The hunting of soul beasts went smoothly without any unexpected circumstances. After allowing Hulina and Xiaoyu to safely absorb the soul rings, Qian Qingqing sent the 2 children back to the temple. Thinking that the hidden task released by the system had not been completed yet, Qian Qingqing decided to go to the Star Forest to try his luck. Maybe she can meet the esteemed Lord Ning there. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. 003, I am the Lord of the Temple, 1000 Qian Qing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3003. I am the Lord of the Temple, 1000 Qian Qing. The next day, Qian Qing got up early again. After greeting Qian Douluo, she set off for the starry forest. As usual, on the way, she put on a mask. In this month's time, she must win the 7 treasures glass sect, otherwise, without the fire of the Red Lotus industry, she would not be able to stop the Blue-Silver Emperor from offering sacrifices. In the past 2 years, with the secret help of Qian Douluo, the business involved in the temple has also been considerable, and the rewards Qian Qingqing received in the system have also been used in the right direction. Although the reputation of the temple has not yet been fully established, it can be considered a place worth worshipping among the people. They regard Qian Qingqing as a savior and have become his loyal followers. Just because the temple can not only accelerate people's cultivation speed, but also break the restrictions and allow those who cannot break through for a lifetime to break through. Regardless of their background, they only consider the results of their efforts, so every year when the temple recruits students, there will be an endless influx of people. To be honest, the hidden tasks released by the system are also a good thing for her. If the 7 treasures glass sect can be recruited, some things can almost be easily solved. Furthermore, the temple requires someone to manage it, and relying solely on her is not enough. Her mind is not as intelligent, but Lord Ning is a smart and sharp person. If we could bring him in, that would be the best thing. Hiking and using lightness skills, Qian Qingqing walked to the starry forest. As soon as he fell from a high altitude, he felt that he had exhausted most of his soul power. As a soul king who has just broken through level 50, Qian Qingqing should not have appeared here alone. After all, the star forest is extremely dangerous. However, it was also to cover up. She received a divine soul ring the day before yesterday that she could absorb directly. However, if she didn't hunt the soul ring, it would still make Qian Douluo suspicious. So in the situation of having both options, she can only come to this place with a hard face. There are many natural spiritual energies in the starry forest, such as the aura emitted by soul beasts, which almost always form spiritual energy in the forest. For Qian Qingqing, spiritual energy is a natural thing used to restore soul power. Qian Qing looked at these natural spiritual energies, her beautiful eyes narrowed, and she slightly raised the corner of her mouth. Hiss, I didn't expect there to be such a good thing here. Thinking that she had consumed most of her soul power just now, Qian Qing immediately sat down to meditate. She decided to absorb her spiritual energy for now, and as for other matters, we will discuss them later. Half an hour later. Zhi. A scream of soul beasts came from the ear, waking up Qian Qingqing who was meditating. Suddenly opening her eyes, Qian Qing carefully felt the direction of the sound coming from. Very close to her. It seems that someone is hunting soul beasts. As expected, Qian Qingqing smiled slightly and hurried to the location of the soul beast. Qian Qingqing was very proficient in using his lightness skills, and in just 2 or 3 minutes, he reached a location not far from where others were hunting soul beasts. In order not to expose himself, Qian Qingqing squatted by the grass and secretly looked in the direction of the soul beast. I saw a dying pink snake lying in the grass not far away, with a unique pink crown that emitted a pink light. Standing in front of the pink snake was a noble man wearing a white robe. The man appeared to be around 30 years old, with a jade-like face, a straight nose and square mouth, a refined and gentle appearance, and a spotless white robe. He smiled slightly and looked very easygoing. Not only that, he also followed 2 men behind him. One dressed in white, the other in black, one with a cold face and the other with a smile, forming a sharp contrast between the two. Qian Qingqing didn't know who they were, but the 2 men following behind the man in the white robe were clearly not ordinary people. Their bodies emitted a sense of arrogance. Those who can possess this aura can only be titled Douluo. Hiss. A soul emperor followed by 2 titled Douluo. Before I could figure out who this person was, a sharp sword aura approached Qian Qingqing. Before she could react, the man in white clothes had already landed in front of her, looking at her with a condescending demeanor. Who are you? The man in white moved so quickly that Qian Qingqing couldn't see his moves clearly, nor did he notice when the person came to him. After a moment of confusion, Qian Qingqing took 2 steps back and immediately bowed to the man in white, saying, "Hello, senior. I am the head of the temple, and I didn't intend to peek at the seniors just now. Just now, while I was meditating, I heard a scream from a soul beast, thinking there was something wrong, so I hurried over to take a look." Qianqing was respectful and sincere in tone, but the man in white had no expression on his face. He instinctively turned to look at the elegant and gentle man. I saw the elegant and gentle man chuckle lightly, emitting a feeling of closeness and comfort all over his body. "Uncle Jian, there's no need to make things difficult for the temple master." A magnetic voice sounded, and the man in white withdrew his sword. Looking up and down at Qian Qingqing, Ning Fengji's face clearly showed a hint of surprise and disbelief. He has heard many legends about the temple in the past 2 years. Out of the foresight of the old fox, he chose to wait and see for a while longer. After all, it is not so easy to establish a foothold in the mainland. I thought the head of the temple was also a top figure, but I didn't expect her to be just a soul sect. No wonder no matter how much he checked earlier, he couldn't find out the true identity of this temple master. The temple master was startled. "I am the head of the 7 treasures glass sect, Ning Fengji." Ning Fengji nodded lightly to Qian Qingqing, which was considered as self-introduction. "The lord of the temple, 1,000 Qian Qing." The Qian Qingqing replied with no hesitation. "Qian Qingqing." Ning Fengji didn't expect that the main deity of this temple had the same surname as the Qian family. But that's not the key either. What really matters to him is Qian Qingqing. Thinking that this was an important moment to establish a good relationship, Qian Qingqing didn't care about Ning Fengji's feelings. She glanced at the pink snake lying on the ground and asked, "Is Lord Ning hunting soul beasts?" Asking questions knowingly may seem like shifting the topic, but in fact, it is approaching. Ning Fengji has been involved in the officialdom and shopping malls for many years, where could he not have been unaware of Qian Qingqing's careful thinking? He smiled lightly and pretended to be confused, responding, "That's right, I'm here to hunt soul beasts." Seeing the palace master covered in dust, I guess he's also here to hunt soul beasts, right? In the midst of the eye movement just now, Ning Fengji learned from Chen Xian's gaze that Qian Qingqing was just a soul sect that had just broken through the level 40 level. According to the best soul ring configuration, the 4th soul ring is perfect for hunting soul beasts in the Star Do Forest. However, not everyone can enter the Star Forest. With Qianqing's strength, being able to freely walk in the forest is truly impressive. Ning Fengji thought that if Qian Qingqing had not yet hunted down a suitable soul ring, he wouldn't mind helping. Although the 7 treasures glass pagoda is the world's top auxiliary martial soul, it can only stay at level 79 and can only have 7 soul rings. If the temple really allows him to break through the prohibition as legendary, then he will be the strongest auxiliary soul master on the entire continent. Although it is still the case now. Who can say for sure what can happen later? It's just a matter of planning in advance. 2 foxes were speculating on each other's thoughts, while Qian Qingqing was focused on completing the task given by the system. She gladly accepted the olive branch thrown by Ning Fengji. Nature. Qian Qingqing nodded, with a hint of wanting to refuse or welcome. However, we have just found a suitable soul beast to hunt and absorbed the soul ring. If we hadn't heard any movement here, we wouldn't have met Lord Ning. After a slight pause, Qian Qingqing glanced at the sky and continued, "It's noon. Master Ning, I have something else to do later, so I won't spend much time with you." Looking at the woman wearing a half-face mask and smiling slightly in front of her, Ning Fengji had a momentary moment of ecstasy. This woman's brain is smarter than he imagined. Ning Fengji originally wanted to show off to Qianqing, but he didn't expect Qianqing wouldn't give him this opportunity at all. It's truly terrifying for the younger generation. No wonder she was able to hold up the temple at a young age. With a smile and a sigh, Ning Fengji lowered her gaze and said, "Since that's the case, then I won't chat with the main hall anymore." It's my fault for offending the main hall today. If there's a chance, I will definitely come and visit you someday. Master Ning, you're welcome. Qian Qingqing clenched her fists, and after leaving this sentence, she quickly used her lightness skills to leave the starry forest without any hesitation. However, in a moment, the entire forest seemed to have lost her footsteps, leaving only the fragrance that belonged to the girl in the air. Ning Feng has been in love for many years, and based on his intuition, he believes that Qian Qingqing is an extraordinary woman. Looking in the direction of Qianqing's departure, Ning Fengji squinted slightly, feeling a different kind of feeling in his heart. The age of Ning Fengji, who set up private facilities here, is around 40. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. 004, Wisdom is her old profession. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 5. 005, Exchange this item for someone more important. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5005. Exchange this item for someone more important. In the following days, Qian Qingqing sent people from the temple to monitor every move of the Seven Treasures Glass Sect. Coincidentally, Ning Fengji also sent people to monitor every move of the temple that day. Originally, Ning Fengji wanted to keep an eye on Qian Qingqing, but the scouts sent out always kept an eye on him halfway and got lost. In order to avoid being discovered by Qian Qingqing, he simply sent someone to stare at the temple, and the result was the same anyway. On that day, the person sent to keep an eye on him came to answer, and the dignified Lord Ning smiled slightly, standing on the bridge deck of the lotus pond, throwing fish food. Report to the sect leader, everything in the temple is as usual without any other actions. In addition, it seems that the temple leader will go to the soul fighting auction in 3 days. I heard that the final auction that day was a red nine-tailed fox. Red nine-tailed fox. Pet. Yes, my lord. The fish in the pond are jumping around, all sticking their heads out to compete for fish food. Ning Fengji looked at them with a smile on her face, like a spring breeze. His smile seemed to have a deep infectious power, and all things have spirits. After eating the fish food, the fish performed the carp leaping over the dragon gate in front of Ning Fengji. Got it, let's go down. Yes, my lord. After tossing all the fish and food, Ning Fengji's mouth lit up with an inexplicable smile. Then, he left the lotus pond and headed towards the main hall of the sect. At the same time, Qian Qingqing also received news that 3 days later, the final product of the Douhun Pie store was a red nine-tailed fox. The red nine-tailed fox is a top-notch pet with excellent appearance. Not only is it good-looking, but it also has great killing power. It is also worth using as a self-defense weapon. It's just that pets like this are the only ones on the mainland, and it's not easy to capture them. Qianqing doesn't have much money on her. In order to build a temple, she had to advance all her pocket money for the next 10 years. Although the temple has improved, it is still a loss-making business and has not even earned back its capital. So, with her current financial strength, she can't even film this red nine-tailed fox. But I really want it, what should I do? Qianqing's mind twitched, her beautiful eyes narrowed, and suddenly she thought of a good solution. She doesn't have money, but others do. As long as the news is widely spread, it will be a fight between immortals, and she will sit aside to reap the rewards. 3 days later. Douhun Pai Shopping Mall. Since the news of the red nine-tailed fox was released, there have been countless people coming to the auction house in the past 3 days, especially today. However, just as it was time for the auction to open, the outside was already full of people. A sea of people, bustling and extraordinary. At the same time, the voices of discussion among the crowd were also incessant. Speaking of which, this red nine-tailed fox is a highly lethal pet. As long as you can obtain it, it is almost equivalent to having an additional soul skill. This is simply the icing on the cake for auxiliary soul masters. Not only is it an auxiliary soul master, no matter who gets it, it strengthens their own strength on the basis of the original. However, for auxiliary souls, this is just to make up for their own shortcomings and greatly enhance their self-protection ability. Who said it's not? I don't know whose hand this red nine-tailed fox will fall into today. Who's in charge of the flower falling? There's hardly any suspense about it, right? The Seven Treasures Glass Sect has a lot of money, and Lord Ning often appears in auction houses. Such a good thing can only fall into the Seven Treasures Glass Sect. Yes, Master Ning is the first auxiliary soul master in the mainland, and this red nine-tailed fox is definitely very important to him. I don't think Lord Ning would keep it for himself. Why did you say this? As is well known, the red nine-tailed fox is a new product discovered by an anonymous soul master, which is rare to see on the entire continent. Instead of keeping it for himself, Master Ning would rather use it as a stepping stone. Hush, you make sense by saying that. Isn't that right? Just weigh it left and right to see which one is more cost-effective. Although there is a sea of people outside the soul-fighting auction house, not many people enter. Most people have heard that today's finale is a rare treasure, so they came over to watch the excitement and discuss who this rare treasure will go to. Qian Qingqing didn't want to participate in it, so she casually listened to a few words and entered the auction house. She knows that the Seven Treasures Glass Sect has a generous wealth. Her main purpose this time is to meet Ning Fengji, and to obtain the red nine-tailed fox. The time for the blue-silver emperor's sacrifice was getting closer and closer, and Qian Qingqing felt that it was time for him to take action as well. Just as she entered the auction house, Qian Qingqing was thinking about finding a seat to sit down when suddenly a girl dressed in a bunny girl costume appeared next to her. The girl held the wine and looked at Qian Qingqing with a smile, saying, "Miss, excuse me. There is a gentleman over there who would like to invite you to come over and have a small gathering." "Sir." Qian Qingqing instinctively looked up at the spot pointed at by the rabbit girl, where a man wearing a blue robe and a mask was standing. The man smiled slightly and nodded at Qian Qingqing, saying hello. Qian Qingqing looked at him and also replied with a greeting. Then, led by the rabbit girl, she went down to the private room above. When Qian Qingqing arrived, Ning Fengji had already sat down. He reserved a spot for Qian Qingqing to take a panoramic view of the entire auction house, while he sat in a slightly smaller area inside. Today, only Gu Rong came out with Ning Feng. When Qian Qingqing first entered the private room, he greeted her with a smile, as if implying something. Qian Qingqing did not slack off on Gu Rong. She bowed to Gu Rong and called out, "Senior Gu Douluo." After sitting down, Ning Fengji didn't rush to talk. He smiled slightly and handed the red wine in front of him to Qian Qingqing. "The lord of the palace should like it," he said. Qian Qingqing gave him a light glance and smiled as he said to the guest, "Thank you very much, Master Ning. You don't need to be polite, the temple master. I believe he came this time also for the red nine-tailed fox, right?" Ning Fengji crossed his legs and crossed his hands on his thighs. He looked at Qian Qingqing gently, his voice clear yet gentle. "Isn't Lord Ning here for it?" Qian Qingqing smiled and picked up his wine glass, shaking it. He turned to the guest and said, "As we all know, the red nine-tailed fox is currently a rare species on the mainland. It can not only be equivalent to an additional soul skill, but also make up for the deficiency of the auxiliary soul master's self-protection ability. For things like this, Ning Zong mainly said that they are not for it, and I don't believe it. The temple master has made things clear. This item is indeed important to me, but if I could exchange it for some more important people, I would be more willing." Ning Fengji chuckled and made a sound, indicating something, but his gaze never left Qian Qingqing's face. He looked at Qian Qingqing as if he wanted to see through her whole person before he was willing to accept her. Faced with the gaze cast by Ning Fengji, Qian Qingqing didn't dodge either. She exchanged a glance with Ning Fengji, and as their eyes flickered, neither of them could see through each other. Then, with a smile, Qian Qingqing withdrew her gaze and looked towards the center of the auction house. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. 006, Little Fox, Old Fox. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6006. Little Fox, Old Fox, the auction is about to start. She changed the topic and said, besides the red nine-tailed fox, does Lord Ning have any other favorite items? Why, is the temple master planning to take a photo of something he likes for this seat? At some point, Ning Fengji had already walked up to Qian Qingqing and stood beside him. He leaned against the fence and looked at Qian Qingqing with interest, without intending to let this little fox go so easily. Coincidentally, Qian Qingqing also planned to use a beauty trick to talk to him about ambiguity, so he smiled and said, Master Ning, you must be joking. The assets of the temple are just a drop in the ocean for Master Ning. Master Ning mainly likes them. If you can't buy them yourself, why do you need me to spend money? The Lord's words are not accurate. If I buy it myself, how can the Lord buy it well? Seeing that the fish had taken the bait, a smile inexplicably appeared on the corner of Qian Qingqing's mouth. She looked at Ning Fengji and her red lips lightly lifted, saying, since that's the case, Master Ning, why don't we play a game? How about that? Oh. What game? Let's listen to it. Ning Fengji raised her eyebrows. Except for the red nine-tailed fox, as long as Master Ning likes it, I can take a picture for him. Similarly, in this auction house, as long as there is something I like, Master Ning can also take a picture for me. How about that? Qian Qingqing smiled slightly, her precious blue eyes like a vast galaxy of stars. With just one glance, one is deeply immersed in it and unable to extricate oneself. Having lived for nearly 30 years, Ning Fengji has seen countless beauties. For simple beauty, he has never been tempted, but unfortunately, Qian Qing has become an exception. Through the mask, he could imagine what Qian Qingqing looked like, and naturally, he also knew that Qian Qingqing was not very old. It's just that one's heart cannot be controlled, even if he knows it's a mistake, he still can't help it. Ning Fengji has been dominating the shopping mall for many years. With such careful thinking as Qian Qingqing, he cannot fail to notice. Qingqing's move was nothing more than playing a game of words. All she wanted was the red nine-tailed fox. Seeing that Ning Fengji had been silent for a long time, Qingqing couldn't help but call out to him, Master Ning. The girl's voice was lively and pleasant, and the sound of Master Ning directly stirred up the calm waves in Ning Fengji's heart. At this moment, he seemed to have a deep desire to meet the conditions proposed by Qian Qingqing. The next second, rationality triumphed over sensibility. He looked at Qian Qingqing with a normal expression and said, the conditions proposed by the palace lord seem to have some errors. The fish broke free from the hook, and Qian Qingqing's face stiffened slightly. Then, a natural smile returned, yes, I forgot. All the prerequisites must be that except for the red nine-tailed fox, Lord Ning. If that's the case, what? The girl smiled and lay on the sofa, looking at the luxurious man. The two of them exchanged a glance, each with a shrewd calculation in their eyes. Ning Fengji also smiled and withdrew his gaze, snorted lightly, then looked at the auction center and replied, that's okay. Regarding this, Qian Qingqing lowered his eyes slightly and did not answer any further. The auction time passed quickly, and among the many auctions, Ning Fengji was interested in a cat girl. Qian Qingqing painfully auctioned off the cat girl for him, but he himself didn't see anything. It was soon the turn of the finale to appear, and Ning Fengji instinctively glanced at the girl lying next to him. He smiled slightly and asked, is the palace master not interested in anything except for the red nine-tailed fox? After auctioning off the cat girl for Ning Fengji, Qian Qingqing no longer cared about the other items at the auction and simply lay on the sofa, closing her eyes and recuperating. In fact, it can't be said that she doesn't like other products, it's just because her scheme was exposed, and she's not feeling well at the moment. Seeing Qian Qing pretending to be asleep without paying attention to herself, Ning Fengji also smiled helplessly. After exchanging a glance with Gu Rong, the latter left the private room and went somewhere. At this moment, only Ning Fengji and Qian Qingqing were left in the private room. Sensing the disappearance of the aura of the title Douluo, Qian Qing inexplicably opened her eyes. She turned her head to look at Ning Fengji sitting next to her and asked, "Has Senior Gu Douluo left?" Ning Fengji nodded, still as elegant and gentle as before. His eyes were very beautiful, and could be considered a true vast galaxy. It was only when they were close that Qian Qingqing could see his bone and facial features clearly. At the moment when Qian Qingqing was lost in thought, Ning Fengji suddenly approached her. I saw Ning Fengji leaning on the sofa with her hands, her body tilting downwards, her whole face very close to Qian Qingqing. The two of them had their eyes facing each other, their eyeballs fluttering left and right, smelling each other's scent. Their hearts suddenly began to beat. As an old god with a soul already several thousand years old, Qian Qing, who was feeling lonely both physically and mentally, couldn't resist the temptation of beauty for a while. Her heart was pounding and she didn't even think of pushing away the man. The appearance of the temple master is rare in the world, why do we have to cover our face with a mask? A deep voice rang in her ear, and Ning Fengji's idle palm suddenly caressed the uncovered half of Qian Qingqing's face. He gently caressed his porcelain-like little face, as if he was about to take off Qian Qing's mask in the next second. Qian Qingqing's cheeks blushed slightly as she was caressed. Although there was a slight reaction in her body, her mind was still clear. How did Lord Ning know that my appearance is rare in the world? I have been wearing a mask all along, maybe because I look ugly. Qian Qingqing raised her eyebrows and had an extraordinary smile on her face. Pushi. Ning Feng was amused, and the ambiguous atmosphere that had just risen between the two completely dissipated. He stood up, tidied up his clothes politely, and then sat down in his original seat. And at this moment, the auction house also welcomed its last item. Dang 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 dang. The most exciting moment is coming. Now please take a look at our last item. Red Nine-Tailed Fox. Under the excited and enthusiastic shouting of the auctioneer, the people sitting in the auction house became excited and excited. They spoke up to cater to the auctioneer, eagerly anticipating what the red nine-tailed fox would look like. Creak. As the central platform of the auction house rotated, everyone focused their attention on it. At the same time, Qian Qingqing also got up from the sofa and looked at the central platform. A deep blue pillar protruded from the ground, rising about 150 centimeters before stopping. The auctioneer approached and skillfully uncovered the black cloth covering the pillar. So, a nine-tailed fox with fiery fur appeared in front of everyone. Red nine-tailed fox, starting at 100,000 gold soul coins. The hammer struck, and the auction house immediately became passionate. I'll pay 100,000. 102,000. 103,000. 105,000. 200,000. 250,000. As she watched the price increase, Qian Qing couldn't help but instinctively touch her pocket. 250,000 gold soul coins, this is no different from robbery these people can really call later. She turned her head to look at Ning Fengji again, and saw that Lord Ning, who was full of aristocratic aura, was leisurely drinking red wine without any intention of bidding. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. 007, 800,000 gold soul coins, Pomeranian smiles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7007. 800,000 gold soul coins, Pomeranian smiles, 25,000 gold soul coins, Master Ning. How much gold soul coins are you planning to spend on buying this little fox in your budget? Qian Qingqing turned around and sat on the sofa. She looked at Ning Fengji with some curiosity and jokingly asked. Ning Fengji raised his eyebrows, glanced at her, and then put down the wine glass in his hand, asking, "How much does the temple master think should be spent appropriately?" "Ask me." Qian Qing thought for a moment and said, 500,000. 500,000. Ning Fengji chuckled lightly and said, "The temple master probably underestimated it." 500,000. Before Qian Qingqing could react, the auctioneer suddenly struck the hammer with an exciting tone. "I really underestimated it." Qian Qingqing looked down and saw the auctioneer looking up excitedly. With the auctioneer's gaze, Qian Qingqing noticed that he was looking in the direction of another private room, which was about 2 or 3 positions away from the one she was in. After bidding 500,000 yuan, everyone below fell silent. Auction venues are also graded, and those who can sit in private rooms are either wealthy or wealthy, just like Ning Fengji. 50,000 times. 500,000 twice. 500,000. Just as the auctioneer was so excited that he was about to shout for the 3rd time, Ning Fengji suddenly sat next to Qian Qingqing, picked up the card from behind her, and lifted it up. 600,000. Someone is asking for 600,000. The auctioneer was once again excited and hammered again. As the auctioneer bid, the people below looked up in unison. "That's 600,000 gold soul coins. Sure enough, he's wealthy and doesn't even blink his eyes." Qian Qingqing turned her head to look at the man beside her, and her words sounded like praise, but there was still a hint of jealousy in her tone. "I still blinked my eyes." Ning Fengji leaned against the sofa and said with a smile, "Besides, isn't it that the temple master wants this little fox? I'm just fulfilling my promise to the temple master." Ha! Upon hearing Ning Fengji's words, Qian Qingqing felt his brain twitching. What is fulfilling a promise? Just now, when she wanted to trick him, it was clear that he didn't let her do it. Why did she rush up to give her a trick now? Is it he likes to be a scapegoat? Watching various exciting expressions on Qian Qingqing's face, Ning Fengji felt a wicked pleasure from the bottom of his heart. He propped up his temples with his hands and looked at Qian Qingqing like this, teasing him. "Why, is the Lord not willing to take it?" "Unwilling? How could you be unwilling?" Qian Qingqing came to his senses and looked at him, with an uncontrollable smile on his face. "I didn't say I was unhappy. Don't waste it, don't be good." Watching Qian Qingqing's heartfelt smile, Ning Fengji also smiled. It was the first time he had heard Qian Qingqing speak with a coquettish tone. Eating people with a short mouth and holding people with a short hand, the temple master is not afraid of this pit on you. Pit me? What can Lord Ning pit me for? Compared to the 7 treasures glass sect, the temple's family business is far inferior. Lord Ning should also disdain pit. Qian Qingqing smiled and leaned back on the sofa, propping her temples with her hands. She looked at Ning Fengji and said, "But if Master Ning can use any place that can reach the temple in the future, you can come to me anytime. As long as I can do it, I will definitely help Master Ning. How about that? How about it? Naturally, it's excellent. The temple master's kindness is difficult for me to resist. If there is anything I really need the temple master's help with in the future, I will personally go to find the temple master. I only hope that the temple master will not retreat until then." Ning Fengji also smiled and murmured, as if implying something inside and outside the words. Although Qian Qing felt something was wrong after hearing this, she didn't think much when she thought that the pet had arrived and the hidden task was almost completed. She took back the green lotus root, got up and walked to Ning Fengji. Suddenly, she approached him and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely not retreat." 2 pairs of starry and vast eyes gazed at each other, Qian Qingqing's eyebrows and eyes curved, Ning Fengji gentle like water. Just as the atmosphere between the two was about to reach a point, the auctioneer on the first floor suddenly became excited and said, 700,000. Someone offered 700,000. The deafening screams made both Qian Qingqing and Ning Fengji feel a bit uncomfortable. Qian Qing withdrew her body close to Ning Fengji and sat back in her original position. Ning Fengji held the sign and raised it again. 800,000. 800,000. Is there anyone else offering a higher price? Is it gone? After about 2 minutes of questioning from the auctioneer, no one offered a higher price. So, 80,000 times. 800,000 twice. 800,000, 3 times. With one stroke of determination, the auctioneer said, "Deal." The auction is over, and at this point, the buyer goes to the back end to settle the payment, and then can leave with the item. Ning Fengji was familiar with the process. He stood up and glanced at Qian Qingqing, asking, "Does the palace master want to go to the backstage with me to settle the accounts?" "Of course it's necessary, after all, you still have a crush on a cat girl." Qian Qingqing stood up and gave Ning Fengji a "I understand everything" look as she passed by, and then she slipped away like a kitten. No. Ning Fengji originally wanted to explain, but he didn't expect Qian Qingqing to run out without any intention of listening to him. "It's really a little fox." Ning Fengji smiled helplessly. He walked out of the private room calmly, and Gu Rong had been waiting outside for a long time. "Xiaozhi, Miss Qian Qingqing has gone that way." When Qian Qingqing came out just now, she slipped too fast, so Gu Rong didn't have time to stop her and could only forcefully see that she had gone in the wrong direction. "No problem, Uncle Gu, let's follow up." In order to prevent Qian Qingqing from wandering around, Gu Rong caught up with her and caught her in front of Ning Fengji. Then the three of them went to the backstage of the auction house together to settle the accounts. After settling the accounts, the red nine-tailed fox fell into the hands of Qian Qingqing. Qian Qing was holding a small and thin fox, and as soon as she got started, she began to pluck the fox's fur. The red nine-tailed fox clearly rejected Qian Qingqing's plucking of its fur. It let out a delicate cry and cast a distressed look at Ning Fengji beside it. Ning Fengji smiled and glanced at the red nine-tailed fox, then at Qian Qingqing. Seeing that Qian Qingqing was happy at the moment, he didn't want to provoke her displeasure. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Has the lord of the palace decided what name to give it?" "Name?" Suddenly asked by Ning Fengji, Qian Qingqing's movement stopped. Speaking of name, she never really thought about calling this little fox anything. "Didn't you think it out?" Ning Fengji raised an eyebrow and continued to ask. Qian Qing nodded and suggested, "It was taken by you. Why don't you just give it your name to pick up? Leave it to me." Ning Fengji thought for a moment and said, "Why not call it Yushuan?" Yushuan. Qian Qingqing's first reaction was that the name had a different meaning. But before she could speak, Ning Fengji snatched her words and said, "Today is the day when the little thing meets you. Call it Yushuan, isn't it okay?" End of this chapter. Chapter 8. 008, this name sounds very nice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8008. This name sounds very nice, isn't it good? Ning Fengji's rhetorical question left Qian Qingqing unable to find a reason to refute it for a while. She glanced at Ning Fengji, then at the red nine-tailed fox, and finally chose to remain silent. Encounter the search, meet the search. However, this little brat is her pet and should have the same surname as her. Qian Qingqing. Why does this name sound so awkward? Looking at Qian Qingqing's face turning green and white, Ning Fengji chuckled and asked, "What is the Lord thinking? Why is his face so unattractive? Isn't it good looking?" Qian Qingqing glanced at him and rubbed Yusun's head, deliberately raising his voice and saying, "Xiao Yusun, from now on, you can follow my surname and call Qian Yusun." Wu, the red nine-tailed fox, responded by rubbing against Qian Qing's chest, expressing its satisfaction with the name. Ning Fengji looked at each person and beast, and his heart only smiled lightly without saying much. Qian Qingqing, this name really sounds good. Along the way, out of a sense of freshness, Qian Qingqing had been playing with Ning Yushuan and had not noticed the expressions of Ning Fengji in Gu Rong. Xiaozhi, just now I went to check the identity of Miss Qianqing again. This person seems to be a whiteboard, and she has hardly ever existed in the past decade. Additionally, her age may. Gu Rong didn't say the next thing, but Ning Fengji looked at him and roughly guessed what he was going to say. Uncle Gu, I will investigate all these matters thoroughly. Qian Qingqing is not a simple person. Gu Rong looked at Ning Fengji with some sadness, not knowing what to say for a while. Having known Ning Fengji for so long, doesn't he know what his thoughts are now? Ultimately, it's just because he's afraid that Ning Fengji's feelings will be deeply rooted, while Qianqing just doesn't know about the world. After sending Qian Qingqing back to the temple, Ning Fengji and Gu Rong returned to the Seven Treasures Glass Sect. Along the way, Ning Fengji always thought that if Qian Qingqing really did what Gu Rong had guessed, then he and Qian Qingqing would only be a joke. Temple. Due to identity reasons, Qian Qingqing was unable to personally raise Qian Yushuan. Therefore, after some thought, she hugged Qian Yushuan and went to find Hulina. Arriving at the door of Hulina's room, Qian Qingqing gently knocked on the door. Sister. The voice came from behind, and Qian Qingqing turned to look over. At this moment, Hulina was sweating profusely, indicating that she had just returned from training. Seeing Qian Qingqing here, Hulina was both surprised and delighted. She wanted to rush over and hug Qian Qingqing, but the thought of sweating profusely on her body dispelled the thought. She looked at Qian Qingqing and asked awkwardly, Sister, why did you come? Qian Qingqing smiled slightly at her without revealing her thoughts. Sister, there's something I want Nana to help with. What's up? Hulina asked. Qianqing glanced at the little cub in her arms and said, I need to practice recently and I really don't have time to take care of this cub. But I feel a bit uneasy about leaving it to someone else to take care of. So, Nana, can you help me take care of it these days? Sure. Hulina responded with a smile, enjoying the feeling of being needed. Qian Qingqing nodded and shook the little cub in his arms, saying, Xiao Yushuan, go to the little fox's side. Wu Qianyuxin glanced at Hulina, perhaps due to the attraction of its own kind, but it didn't hesitate at all, and jumped directly towards Hulina. Sister, I will definitely take care of it. Hulina hugged Qian Yushuan who was running towards him and solemnly swore to Qian Qingqing. The innocent face revealed a serious and sincere expression. Qian Qingqing smiled and walked up to Hulina, rubbing her head and saying, while taking care of it, you also need to take care of yourself. Don't just focus on it and ignore yourself. Okay. A warm feeling hit from the top of her head, and Hulina was slightly stunned, but her body's reaction was still faster than the one on her face that had regained consciousness. I saw a slight blush on her cheeks, and her heart was pounding. Even as Qianyuxin lay in her arms, he could feel her heart beating rapidly. Wu Qianyuxin let out a fair cry, but the next moment, she was interrupted by Hulina. Sister Mask, don't worry, I will take good care of it and myself. As long as I am here, it will definitely not suffer any injustice. Okay, Nana is amazing. Finally, before leaving, Qian Qingqing specifically reminded Hulina not to take Ningyu out of the temple. After Hulina agreed, Qian Qingqing returned to the Martial Soul Hall with peace of mind. Martial Soul Hall. Qian Qingqing had just arrived home and had not had a chance to warm her buttocks. Qian Xuanji sent someone to find her and asked her to go to the Pope's palace. Due to the suppression of power and strength, Qian Qingqing also had to follow the deacon of the Martial Soul Hall to the Papal Hall. Above the main hall of the Pope's palace, a man with blonde hair and golden pupils sat upright, while he was closing his eyes and recuperating. On the second seat, there sat a woman with light purple hair. She was extremely beautiful, with her beautiful long hair firmly tied to the back of her head, and her eyes were full of charm. Your Highness, the young master is here. After bringing the person, the deacon of the martial Soul Hall bowed and retreated. Qian Qingqing slowly opened his eyes after outsiders had stepped down. At this moment, only he, Bibi Dong, and Qian Qingqing were in the papal palace. He glanced at the Qianqing standing in the center of the hall, without a father's love for his daughter, only the strong's rare love for genius. Father, mother. Although Qianqing couldn't bear Qian Qingqing's view of her, she still didn't have the ability to kill this cheap father. Currently, she can only endure it. As for the future, we will talk about it later. For Qian Qingqing calling her mother, Bibi Dong was very disgusted. Her expression moved, she frowned slightly, and a hint of impatience emanated from her pale purple eyes. Xue, according to my father, you have already exceeded level 40 a few days ago. Qianxuan looked at Qianqing with a joyful expression on his face. Qianqing and he exchanged a glance, restrained their spirits, and bowed to answer, yes. Upon hearing Qian Qingqing's confession, Qian Xuanji had to laugh twice again. Ha ha ha, she truly deserves to be my daughter. Since that's the case, how about my father taking you to hunt soul beasts in a few days? How about it? Not very good. Qian Qingqing lifted her eyes slightly and glanced at Qian Xuanji. In Qian Xuanji's joyful gaze, she showed a hint of disdain. Without letting Qian Xuanji notice, she quickly lowered her eyes and said, report to my father that on the second day after breaking through level 40, my daughter had already absorbed the soul ring. I won't bother my father about this matter. Has it been absorbed? After hearing this, Qian Qingqing frowned slightly and asked, did your father take you to hunt the soul beast? Nature. Qian Qingqing's crisp voice echoed in the hall. She gently looked up and smiled at Qian Xuanji's eyes, saying, in the future, Grandpa will solve his daughter's problems with his own hands. Whether it's soul rings or anything, he won't bother his father. After hearing this, Qianxuan's eyebrows furrowed even tighter. Is Xue blaming him for not caring about her? It is only natural for Qian Renxue to have resentment towards him, considering that he has indeed neglected Qian Renxue in these years. Next, Qian Xuanji just briefly greeted Qian Qingqing's daily routine. After answering according to tradition, Qian Qingqing went to the Elders' Hall. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. 009, some minor difficulties will be solved soon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9009. Some minor difficulties will be solved soon. Elder Hall. In the vast hall, angel statues shining with golden light are enshrined inside. Qianqing pushed the door open and entered. At this moment, a man in a simple black robe was facing her with his back. He was tall, with golden hair scattered behind his head, neatly combed. Although his clothes looked simple from behind, he just stood there, giving people a feeling of worship. Grandpa. Qianqing walked forward and called out softly. For some reason, as long as she looks at the back of Qian Douluo, she feels very at ease. Xiaoxue, you're here. 1,000 streams turn around. Qian Qingqing looked up at him and saw that the man in front of him looked only 30 or 40 years old, handsome, with a faint smile on his face, giving people a feeling of tranquility and gentleness. This man is Qian Renxue's grandfather, the only relative in Qian Renxue's heart. Qian Renxue's softness is only revealed in front of him. Grandpa, have you eaten yet? Qian Qingqing approached Qian Douluo and blinked. She took Qian Douluo's hand and said, if you haven't eaten yet, why don't you have a meal with Xiaoxue? The 13-year-old girl is very cute and playful. Previously, Qian Douluo was worried that Qian Renxue would be sad and upset because of Bibidong's attitude towards her, but now it seems that he has thought too much. Nowadays, Xiaoxue is very different from before, and she can now handle many things on her own. Qian Douluo doted on Qian Qingqing's head and said, since Xiaoxue has invited him warmly, it's not easy for Grandpa to refuse. Let's have a meal together. Okay, Qian Qingqing happily threw herself into Qian Douluo's arms. She wrapped her hands around his waist and leaned her head against his embrace, carefully feeling the warmth of her family. At night, Qian Qingqing cooked several delicious dishes at home, and when he sat down to eat, Qian Douluo was both surprised and praised them. Being praised, Qian Qingqing was also very happy. She kept serving dishes to Qian Douluo and letting him taste her craft. After taking the first bite, Qian Douluo did not refuse the second bite. While eating the food, he praised Qian Qingqing, and the two of them enjoyed each other happily, laughing to the extreme. After dinner, Qian Qingqing finished tidying up the dishes and poured a glass of water for Qian Douluo. Just as she was about to clean up, Qian Douluo suddenly stopped her and said, "Xiao Xue, I've been wanting to find a chance to talk to you about something." "What's going on?" Qian Qingqing stopped and turned to look at Qian Douluo. Qian Douluo said solemnly, "The temple is now stagnant, and there is a hint of regression, especially in recent months when business problems have not only caused serious losses but have also been hindered. Xiao Xue, it's time to find some suitable people to manage it." The power of the temple has always been tightly held in the hands of Qian Qingqing. Starting from the past 2 months, she released the temple in order to break through level 40. Therefore, in this regard, she was indeed irresponsible and negligent. However, there is no one worthy of trust to take over the business of the temple now. If someone were to use them recklessly, the situation may not be better than it is now. After a moment of silence, Qianqing asked, "Do you have a suitable candidate for Grandpa?" Qian Douluo said, "The manpower in the martial Soul Hall has always been sufficient. If Xiao Xue doesn't have time to manage the temple, you can transfer some trustworthy people from the martial Soul Hall. This is not a difficult task." The person who calls the martial Soul Hall. Isn't this a clear purpose for Qianxu and Ji to discover her impurity? Qianqing didn't want to continue to accept Qianxuan's suspicion all day, so, "Grandpa, although that's the case, the business involved in the temple is almost similar to that of the martial Soul Hall. The martial Soul Hall has not had many personnel in terms of business. If they were transferred at this time, my father would probably be unhappy, wouldn't he?" In response, Qian Douluo chose to remain silent. What Qian Qingqing said is not unreasonable, but it is not a problem that the temple has been losing money. After all, it has injected his granddaughter's hard work into it. Qian Douluo didn't really want to just watch the temple decline like this. Qian Qingqing saw the concern in his eyes and immediately walked up to him and sat down, saying, "Grandpa, the boat will naturally straighten at the bridgehead. You don't have to worry about the condition of the temple. Maybe it will get better in a while." Seeing Qian Douluo's furrowed brow, Qian Qingqing said again, "Grandpa, there is no way to do business without losing money. Moreover, in recent years, the trend of the temple has always been very good, and now it is just a small ordeal. It will pass soon." Under the persuasion of Qian Qingqing, Qian Douluo agreed not to transfer people from the martial Soul Hall to the temple. But similarly, Qian Douluo also became suspicious of Qian Qingqing at this moment. Although he didn't show anything on the surface, he didn't quite understand why Qian Qingqing had been unwilling to accept the help of the martial Soul Hall for the temple. Qianqing did not provide any explanation for this. After all, there are some things that do not need to be seen in the process. After seeing off Qian Douluo, Qian Qingqing went to take a cold shower and became sober. It's only half a month left until the Qianxuan disease operation, and so far, she hasn't dealt with Ning Fengji yet. Although Ning Fengji gave her the 9-tailed fox, the two of them never revealed their cooperation. Qianqing felt that there seemed to be an invisible barrier between her and Ning Fengji. Thinking of Ning Fengji's actions during the day at the auction house, Qian Qingqing could roughly guess 7 or 8 points in her heart. But love is a big gamble. Once you lose, it will never be undone. Moreover, Ning Fengji is still a man who prioritizes the interests of his sect. He is so intelligent that he would never give up his interests for the sake of love. The stakes in this big gamble are too high, she really doesn't want to gamble. Not only that, but what she is holding now is the body of Qian Renxue when she was 13 years old. Even if she really put her mind to gambling, her body wouldn't support it. At most, a platonic love story. Headache. After taking a shower, Qian Qingqing walked out of the bathroom wearing a bathrobe. In the spacious room, the night breeze blew lightly, and the thin veil was blown up. Qian Qingqing instinctively glanced at the windowsill, as if thinking of something. She walked to the refrigerator, took out 3 bottles of wine from inside, opened them one by one, and walked to the windowsill. Tonight's style was comfortable, and Qian Qingqing greedily boasted. At this moment, his mind also became much clearer. At the same time. Tonight, the 7 Treasures Glass Sect. Ning Fengji lay in bed for a long time, closed his eyes and cleared his mind for a long time, but he never fell asleep. His mind kept flashing with the figure of Qian Qing, her smile, her desolation, and her coquettishness. Opening his blue-green eyes slightly, Ning Fengji lay flat on the bed. He looked at the luxurious ceiling and frowned slightly, feeling in his heart that he and Qian Qingqing were destined for each other. At this moment, the night wind suddenly rose, and the curtains in the room danced wildly. The bright moonlight penetrated through the gaps and reflected on Ning Fengji's delicate and moving face. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. 010, It is very picky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. It is very picky. In the early morning, dawn broke in the east, and before the sun had risen, a golden light shone on the windowsill, coloring the entire windowsill with a layer of gold. Qian Qing stayed up all night until the golden light shone on her face, and she slowly got up from the seat. After a night of consideration, she still decided to take the initiative. Since Ning Fengji threw the olive branch, she just climbed up. Quickly settle the cooperation with the 7 Treasures Glass Sect, and the so-called temple crisis mentioned by Qiandao Lu can also be easily resolved. After finishing breakfast at the Martial Soul Hall, Qian Qingqing went to the temple. Hey! Ha! Hey! The sound of soldiers training remains as loud as ever. Qian Qingqing crossed over them and went directly to the council hall. The structure of the temple is very simple, except for the 2 training grounds and cafeteria. There is only one council hall and main hall. Due to Qian Qingqing's absence from the temple all year round, the main hall and council hall have always been empty. In order to prevent insects from growing inside the palace, Qian Qingqing allocated the meeting hall to Hu Laiyina and Xiaoyu for residence. Of course, the interior of the conference hall was directly renovated, adding 2 more rooms. Brother, what if it doesn't eat? I promised my sister to take good care of it. An anxious and childish female voice came from the conference hall, followed by a voice from a little boy answering her. Nana, don't worry, it's possible it's not hungry. How could it be that you're not hungry? Hulina exclaimed urgently, since my sister brought it here yesterday, it hasn't eaten a single bite. It's been several tens of hours since it was delivered. Even if it had eaten before, it should be hungry now. Okay, Nana, don't worry for now. We can't be so impatient when solving things. We can take a look and prepare some other things for it to see if it eats, okay? Xiaoyu comforted Hu Laiyina like a little adult, patting her back and whispering softly. Hulina glanced at Xiaoyu with red eyes and finally chose to respond softly, okay, then. In the council hall, the fiery 9-tailed fox was placed on the long table, lightly licking its paws, completely ignoring the conversation between Hulina and Xiaoyu. After listening to their conversation outside the hall, Qianqing smiled and pushed the door in. Xiaoyu, Nana. Sister. Wu Xiaoyu and Hu Laiyina shouted in unison, both looking very surprised. They immediately walked forward and surrounded Qian Qingqing. When Qian Yuxin heard Qian Qingqing's voice, he also let out a call, but Qian Qingqing didn't call it alone, it seemed a bit hesitant. Sister, why did you come? How long do you plan to stay here today? I haven't shown you the new soul skill I learned last time yet. Me too. My new soul skill sister hasn't seen it either. I also want to show it to her. The two children were eager to speak to Qianqing, fearing that Qianqing might overlook one of them. Qianqing smiled slightly and rubbed the heads of both of them, saying, "All right, I already know. Don't worry, come one by one. Coincidentally, I'm free today. Do you two want to learn other martial arts?" Martial arts? What martial arts? Hulina and Xiaoyu looked at each other and asked in unison. Soft fist. Soft fist. What is Rochuan? Hulina blinked her round eyes and asked curiously. Xiaoyu was also curious, but he didn't speak up and just looked at Qian Qingqing quietly. Qian Qingqing bowed slightly and said with a smile, "Soft fist is a very powerful skill that can greatly enhance your strength. However, practicing this skill requires some time, just like learning lightness skills is a principle." Ah! Is it as difficult as lightness skills? Hulina suddenly vented her airway. I practice lightness skills non-stop every day, but I still can't compare to my brother and sister. Am I not suitable for this? No, it's not. Qian Qingqing crouched down and looked at Hulina, patiently explaining with a slight smile, "The reason why Nana finds it difficult is not because Nana is not suitable, but because your evil moon brother practiced lightness skills a year earlier than you, so he looks a bit easier now." After thinking for a moment, Qian Qingqing said again, "Back then, when your brother Xiaoyu practiced lightness skills, he wasn't as easy as you were. At that time, he couldn't even catch up with the wind." Really? Hulina instinctively looked at the evil moon and her mood noticeably improved. The old story was revealed, and the evil moon on the side couldn't help blushing. He retorted with good face, "No way. Sister, don't talk nonsense. I can catch up with Lord Qingfeng." Ha ha ha, Qian Qingqing laughed heartlessly, then stood up and looked at Qian Renxue lying on the table, saying, "Actually, Rochuan is not very difficult, it just takes some time, and lightness skills are not a day's work. If you are willing to learn, I will teach you. If you don't want to, it's not a big problem, after all, it depends on people's preferences." Hulina and Xiaoyu looked at each other again, and they both spoke firmly together, "I'll learn." Okay. Qianqing patted the shoulders of the two of them and said, "Starting from tomorrow, I will set aside some time every day to teach you. You must study seriously and not be distracted." Aha. Hulina nodded with a smile and replied, and soon after, she seemed to have remembered something again, with a hint of sadness on her face. "What's wrong, Nana?" Qian Qingqing is a meticulous person, especially when it comes to girls, she will be extra attentive. She has always been reluctant to look at her beautiful sister with a worried face. Hulina's gaze towards Qian Qingqing seemed a bit guilty. She pointed to Qian Yushuan lying on the table and whispered, "Sister, that little fox hasn't eaten for more than 10 hours. Yesterday, she promised Qian Qingqing that she would take good care of the little fox, but today seeing Hulina's face full of self-blame, Qian Qingqing couldn't help but sigh lightly. She smiled and rubbed Hulina's head gently, saying, "It's okay, it's nothing to do with you. This little guy recognizes strangers and only eats raw meat, so it's really difficult to serve." Eating raw meat. Hulina looked a bit surprised. She glanced at Qian Qingqing and then at Qian Yushuan, feeling very unbelievable. "Yeah, so it's really difficult to serve, right?" Qianqing seemed to be alluding to someone, but the young Hulina and Xiaoyu didn't understand. They just nodded in agreement and didn't say much. On the table, Qian Renxue listened to everything and scratched his ear. Knowing that Qian Qingqing was not talking to him, he didn't pay much attention. However, Qian Qingqing has not come to see it yet, and it is a bit angry, jealous of Hulina and Xiaoyu. End of this chapter.